On the 21st of November, still unified welterweight champion of the world, Errol Spence Jr. is due to put his titles on the line against Danny Garcia. Errol Spence will not have fought since October, November last year, basically just a bit over a year since defeating Sean Porter in a very good fight. About 2 weeks later, he has that horrendous car accident. You can watch the footage. It flips over. I've seen men die from less. And yet he comes out of it with, busted teeth? Hands scratched a bit? That's it. He was out of intensive care in about 6 days. It really was a miracle. If you're religious and you want to call that a miracle, I have got no problem. But we don't know, particularly getting back in the ring against at least a pretty high-level operator in Danny Garcia. We don't know what other latent problems or injuries there may be. Because at the very top level, if you lose a little bit of reflexes or anything in most sports, it's normally quite evident. So if Spence's balance is off, if his hand-to-eye coordination isn't the same, I think it's going to be apparent pretty quickly. But on the understanding that Errol Spence Jr. will at least be 70% the fighter he once was, I see him having a pretty dominant victory. Danny Garcia was defeated against Sean Porter, I think in 2018. So just going off who beat who, Errol Spence Jr. beats Danny Garcia. Then we've got the huge size difference. Errol Spence Jr. is a big welterweight who, if he's still strong at the weight and doesn't have to make that jump up to light middle, he is a handful. He is big and he is fundamentally sound. And it's got to be said, really, I haven't been that impressed with Danny Garcia over the course of his career. He knocked out Khan, and then he looked like he was just basically making that bridge from world champion to superstardom after beating Lucas Matisse in 2013. But then directly after, he arguably loses against Herrera, and then he got bullied against Peterson, possibly lost that one. He's very tough. He knows how to counterpunch. He's very game. But Danny Garcia is a little bit basic. His head is static. He doesn't really slip punches, does he? And against somebody, again, as big and fundamentally good as Errol Spence, if he is still at least 70% the fighter he was, he's going to back him up. And he's not spectacular, but he pushes you back and breaks you down in a very methodical manner. If Errol Spence was at his absolute best, perhaps he would get that knockout that he's going to want. But first, fight back after that crash. And you surely can't be at your best after something like that. I think he's going to pound out a decision over Garcia, who is good with his counters, but I can't see how he gets control of this fight. He doesn't have a great jab. Errol Spence does have a good jab. I think that's going to get this fight by the scruff of the neck. And it's a dangerous fight to have for your first comeback fight after such a crazy instance as flying out of your Ferrari without a seatbelt. But I think he's going to go about his business. He's going to do what he knows how to do. And he's going to pound out a unanimous decision. If, hopefully, whatever the attendance is, this fight does go ahead, is it 21st of November? How do you see it going?